Does traditional education deliver or fall short in educating and nurturing children? Introducing Aligned Learning Revolution, the show that confronts conventional norms and presents dynamic alternatives to transform education. Host Kohila Sivas tackles the foundational issues within classroom walls and advocates for holistic learning opportunities. It's time to reveal the strength of the innovative, holistic NeuroGrowth learning approach that goes beyond conventional teaching or tutoring methods, assuring every learner of a stress-free learning journey to unlock their fullest potential. Now, join Kohila Sivas.
On this episode, I want to introduce our holistic neurogrowth learning success coach, Lynette, a remarkable individual with a rich background and a strong dedication for education. She is a military veteran and she is also an educator with 22 years of experience. Lynette firmly believes that every child can learn and is passionate about helping them gain confidence, grit, and appreciation for learning. As a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach, Lynette's focus is on building up students and instilling in them the love for learning. She wants them to understand the value of education from a young age. Let's welcome Lynette to the show. Hi, Lynette. Thank you for coming in today. How are you?
Hi, Kohila. I'm doing great. How are you?
Very, very good. So, Lynette, you have decided to become a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach. That's what
yes, I have.
With the students. One of the questions that people have confusion with is, what's the difference between a tutor? Because you didn't become a tutor, you're a teacher by profession. Now you have chose to become a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach. So why not become a tutor, and what's the difference?
Well, a coach versus a tutor, a coach definitely goes a lot deeper in understanding students. A coach doesn't just focus primarily on the content. I always consider tutoring more surface level. The relationship building is typically absent from there. And I would think that a phenomenal tutor is probably behaving like a coach. And I've had some friends that are tutors and they explain what they do. I'm like, yeah, you tutor. However, I have one particular friend who tutors. Well, he calls himself a trainer and he really behaves like a coach. So, but he chooses to be called trainer, which he's definitely a lot more than just a tutor. But again, I think a tutor is just very superficial. Not that it's a bad thing, and I think it's more beneficial for kids that maybe do not have huge learning gaps or any learning gaps at all. Maybe it's just a student that needs a little extra push, a little extra help, and fine. Coaching, that is considering the entire child, who they are, getting to know them, getting to know their families as well, because again, it takes all of us together. But a coach definitely digs a whole lot deeper than a tutor ever can.
Mm-hmm. And when a parent is looking to hire a tutor or a coach, what should they look for, in your opinion? What should they, consider?
Well, they need to consider what their child really needs. And sometimes they don't know, which is why it's great working with someone like myself, that I can go ahead and get to know the student and give them the battery of assessments to really get to know. And again, that's a snapshot as well. But again, tutors don't really do that. So the parent has to know and be able to articulate some of what the issues are. And in having that conversation with I can pick up on, yeah, I think you need to go this way. And that's when kind of having a conversation with them and them getting to know me, and then sharing with them what it is that I offer. It's like that light bulb goes off and they're like, yeah, I think that's what my kid needs. So again, they need to be able to articulate, even if it's just a little bit, what that child is struggling with, because that really is the only way to know which direction to go.
Mm-hmm. And as parents, sometimes we don't really know what our children really are struggling with, because we see the behaviors, right? And then behaviors don't really typically tell us exactly what's happening under the surface.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Because sometimes parents, they get the result of a child maybe not understanding what's going on in class. A lot of times kids are afraid to look dumb. A lot of times kids don't even want to ask their teacher, so they keep it to themselves. But then you have the flip side. You have those students that maybe are causing a disruption in class. A lot of times it's because there's something deeper going on. They're not grasping the materials. Maybe they're, upset at themselves. Maybe they get angry that they don't get it as fast as their peers do, and they act out. They act out at school, in class, or sometimes at home. Sometimes kids don't want to talk to parents either. So again, that's where a coach comes in and can really, be able to ask those right questions to try to get to the source of what's going on. I'm a firm believer that kids who struggle in school, there's a reason. I think it's very, very, very small amount of kids that just don't care. I refuse to believe that kids who are failing just don't care. That's not the case. There's a reason why they're struggling. Maybe they reach a point that they feel they don't care because they don't know how to get the help.
And over time, if you're failing repeatedly, I mean, who wants to do that same thing again, right? Like even adults, as us, if I suck at something again and again and again, I'm not going to be excited to do it again. I'll be making excuses. I'll be making stories to get out of it. And that's what kids do because that's all they have, right?
Because we human beings convince ourselves of things that could be completely false. And sometimes it requires stepping outside our comfort zone. And a lot of times, even adults, you need someone there by your side that's going to give you that push. And it's going to make you understand that, you know what, if you fail, it's okay. You get up and you try again. But a lot of people don't have that, including kids.
Yeah. If we were afraid of that, all of us could never walk, right? Because how many times did we fall when we learned to walk as infants, right?
Absolutely.
As a toddler. So tell me a little bit about why you became a teacher in the first place.
Ooh, why I became a teacher? That's a loaded question. Okay. Well, I kind of took a different route to education. I started pretty late. My life in a nutshell after college was I went into the military. I worked as a graphic artist for several years. I had my own business, but my heart was always with education. And the funny thing is that the reason why I did not go into education right away is because I always wondered why my teachers look so tired and why they were carrying so much stuff. And then once I became one, I realized why. But still, there's something beautiful about teaching. And that's where I got my most joy, in being a part of another person learning, being a part of another person becoming successful, even if that meant, hey, they got an A on a spelling test. I helped them get there. So that made me super happy. On the flip side, I always say education is both my pleasure and my torture. Because while I love the art and science of teaching, because of the system we're in, it became painful, which is why I'm kind of going into coaching instead. But I still believe that working with students, especially a student that really has the need, it just brings me a whole lot of joy just to be able to help them. It really does. It does a lot for me.
And, as parents sometimes have misunderstanding with teachers when their child starts struggling. You're also a dean now, right, at the school you're at?
Yeah, I'm actually the 7th grade dean, which I deal with discipline all day long.
Yes, discipline. So how do you handle parents when, when you require disciplining with the students? And obviously it's going to make the parents upset because sometimes parents are not even aware of a lot of things that their child is going through. How do you handle that relationship?
Well, very similar to how I did in the classroom. Very, very similar. I'm a strong believer in building those relationships. It can't just be limited to the students. It has to be with the parents as well. And how I deliver the message. And my job right now is I've suspended out of school multiple students. However, the way I approach it is, unless it's something really bad that they need to be suspended right away, if they do something wrong, I like to give the kid a chance to redeem themselves. And I make sure the parent is aware of that. Because in the event there's another discipline issue, then I have to give them a consequence. But it all boils down to understanding the parent and how it must feel to get that phone call from the school, I can't imagine it feeling good. I never had that with my child, so I don't know what it feels like. But I'm very good at understanding people, and I approach it in a way that's respectful, is not condescending, even though if I might be upset if a child did something really bad. But at the end of the day, we're here to work together to teach this child that XYZ is wrong and there are consequences for the choices that we make. So thankfully, I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this my second year being a dean, and some of my clients that I actually have been a result of disciplining their children. That's how I first met them. But again, because I think people are able to read me and know that I'm very genuine, because I truly am. I love what I do, and I love kids to be successful in a safe manner. So again, it's kind of simple to say, but it's really building that relationship so that the parent understands, hey, listen, I'm here for your kid. That's why I do this.
Yeah.
And they get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of schools, teachers are leaving for this kind of problems, right? Where they're not heard, they're being blamed by parents or the admins, throw them under the bus, because I really want in this show for parents to understand what a teacher goes through too, right? In the classroom when dealing with it's not easy. We don't ever want to, as teachers, you're not there to discipline, or you're not there to give them suspension. It's not what it's for. But at the same time, you have, protocols, and you have things you need to in place. So how can a parent understand a teacher in a situation like that? They're going through situations of.
I think when I was in the classroom, something that I did like very early on in the school year, which it was a lot of work for me, but I made sure that with my email, I created a massive email group with every single parent. And I work at a very big school. So it took me a few weeks to gather that address group together, but I would introduce myself to the parent and I would speak from the heart, and again, because I believe you got to bring them on your side so that they can understand that we are in this together. I cannot educate your child. This day and age is different. Okay. I've been doing this 22 years. It has changed a lot. To get a kid's attention in class is extremely difficult. But if the teacher and the parent are working together, that child has no choice but to comply with what we ask, because we're here to help them be their best self. So I think it goes back to that. Again, I go back to the building of relationships. I would call parents frequently when I had to. Unfortunately, because of the size of my school and how fast-paced things are, I might not have been able to give them a phone call and say, hey, your child did a great job today. But guess what? I could send them an email, or I could send them a text, because we have apps today where you can, parent signs up, boom, you can send them a really quick text. Hey, your child did a fantastic job today. But I believe the parent needs to see that the teacher is a human being that really does care. And I think if a person's able to see that, you're more apt to win them over, because from my experience, I think most parents understand how difficult teaching is. I've been fortunate in that sense. And every now and then you get the one parent, but that one parent that's really hot, they're not thinking clearly at the moment. It's like when a teacher's upset, ideally you should not be sending an email when you're upset. Give yourself time to think it over and cool down before you respond to a parent message. And I've done that. Again, I started teaching fairly late, unlike a lot of my coworkers that are super young and out of college. So I kind of have that experience with my life experience, military, corporate world. So I brought all that with me when I started teaching. Hence, I've also trained teachers. So I was an instructional coach before, and I would train teachers. And those are one of the things that I would say to them, just little strategies, because we're human. Parents make mistakes when they send those emails and they're not thinking, they want to blame you, but that's because they're upset. Pick up that phone, call them, have a human conversation. And that's really all it takes.
That's a great tip. And also it could go for parents too, right? Not to send that email right away, but when you are upset and mad because one thing is going to be, I always say, at the end of the day, the child is in the middle of all of this chaos, right?
Yep.
The blame games and all of that. So,
And listen, our job is to model for kids, and you don't want to model poor behavior, either from the teacher or the parent. That's not the way to go.
absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, why did you choose to become a learning success coach, NeuroGrowth learning success
Well,
coach?
I learned of learning success coaches almost by accident, actually. This was last December, not last December, the one before, December of 2022. I literally just got a text message. I've never heard of learning success coaches ever. I literally was at my kitchen counter. It was right before Christmas break, so I had maybe a few days left of the school term. And I got a text message, and I thought it was a joke. I thought it was spam. And it was like, are you interested in leaving the classroom and you know, pursuing your own practice? I'm like, what is this? So I never do this, but I texted back. Lo and behold, I learned everything there is to learn about learning success coaches, and the rest is history. I went ahead, got all my information, spoke to your wonderful husband, because I was very apprehensive, like, I don't buy this. I don't buy this. But it's real. It's true. And like I said, the rest is history. And once I learned about it, I'm like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I've been looking for years. And it happened for me like that.
Yeah. And what is it? What is it that you were looking for?
I was looking for an opportunity to run my own show, if you will. I was looking for an opportunity to be the kind of educator that I've always wanted to be, that I really could not be fully in the classroom and in the current system as we have it. And I wanted an opportunity to gain my freedom. That's what I wanted. And I found this.
Yeah. And in this, what are you able to give the students? Because that's powerful for you.
I'm able to give them a lot of all of the skills and knowledge that I have without the constraints of the system and having to follow a single linear path that leaves no room for creativity, not just for myself as the educator, but for the student as a learner. So even though I have some students that are in the public school system, and at school they're boxed in, but with me they're not. We can break down those walls, and we're going to work on the things that, you know, I feel you need based on the assessments that I gave you. I also help them with things they're doing in class as well, because it has to be relevant. They have to take it back to what they're doing in class, but we're not boxed in. So there's a lot more freedom. And I'm able to pull resources without someone telling me, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, because I'm saying that I can. And that's what my student needs. So again,
that's when
freedom.
That's what you mean by freedom and have control for a teacher, right? That's so much incredible.
That I do, yes, but also freedom and direction of where I want to take my own life. You know, even though I'm currently still employed, my attitude and outlook every day is totally different. It's a lot more positive and hopeful, because my plan is to be able to continue to build this practice and do it full time.
And how do students respond to coaching? Because these are students who are struggling in so many different ways, and you meet them and then you transform them at the end. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it does take time. I have one student I've been working with since the summertime. And the wonderful thing is that when he's able to look at his notebook that we create together and compare it to the work that he has done on his own, he can see the difference. Where he is on his own with no coaching, no help, versus what his work, and I'll just say writing, for example, what his writing looks like with my coaching. And I always like my students to get involved. If there's something in particular they want to read about, this is very different from being in the classroom. You got to do what your teacher tells you. With me, however, hey, you like soccer? You like Lionel Messi? I'll pull up a piece of text on him and read things the student is actually interested in. because the student really drives this.
Mhm.
I'm their servant. That's how I see it.
Mhm.
Because I want this to be meaningful to them.
And
And
how
they
important
respond.
and how important is that to learning?
It
Relevant
is
and
completely.
meaningful. Yeah. That's why
Yeah.
they're disengaged, right? That's why students are unmotivated. That's why sometimes they appear lazy, because we're telling them things that are not relevant to them. They don't see the point.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you have, 25 kids in a classroom, I understand the teacher has to, because I've been there. The teacher has to do what she's told to do. But with coaching, it's completely different. I become a part of their family.
Mhm.
It's
Of course.
different.
So if a parent is listening, for what tip can you give them if I'm looking at my son saying, he is lazy? Because sometimes we tend to label our kids too, right, as parents, because if they're not
Oh, yeah.
doing what they're supposed to do, we're hard on them. But as you said earlier, when we started, you were mentioning that it's not that they don't want to do it, they don't know how, or they got lost in the process, right? So they
Right.
appear like that. So what tips would you give them? A tip?
Well, one of the tips that I would definitely give is for a parent not to compare their child to either their other children or their friends' children, because every learner is different. You and I are very different. You and I learn differently, and kids are no different. So again, it's really easy to label them, and I'm guilty of that as well with my own child. But also, I know how to ask the right probing type of questions to kind of get to the core of what's going on. And because when a student first meets me, they're not familiar with me, so they're more apt to speak. But it's the same thing with parents. If you ask the right questions to try to understand what really is going on. Because like I said, I don't believe that kids are failing because they want to. I don't believe that. There are many reasons why. We just have to kind of get to the core of what that reason is, because only with that we'll be able to kind of build something and move forward from there. So definitely the comparison. Just understand that every child is different.
Absolutely. So in your coaching practice, when a student comes and let's say they're not reading, what are you noticing about why they're not reading? What is the reason why kids are not reading these days? Because there's a lot of kids have fallen behind. There's a big gap in what they can read and where they should be. So what are you noticing?
It depends on the age. I've worked through this practice. I've worked with elementary, middle, high school, college. So let's talk about the little ones, because it's a lot easier to identify in younger kids. When a young child, let's say a third grader, cannot read through the assessments, I'll know, they have a decoding issue. That means they don't know the sounds of individual letters and letters together. That is a massive problem. And the sooner a parent catches that and seeks help, the better it is for the child. Okay, that's a younger student. When it comes to middle and high school, it's lack of interest. Again, the assessments give me so much information. And I have one particular student, his decoding skills are fine. He's fluent. It's the comprehension piece. So that's the last level when it comes to reading comprehension. He's just not interested in the things that he's given to read. So that's where working with me, the things that we read are topics that he actually enjoys. And then he asks questions. So it's really for older kids, it's just a lack of interest because again, and it's not their fault, they're boxed in. In school, they have to read massive texts on topics they are so not interested in. But with me, at least if I give them something that they're interested in, I can help them with the comprehension piece because they want to comprehend, especially if they're reading on a soccer play that they love. So that helps to push them, and then teaching them the comprehension strategies that they can take back to school. So those are the differences there. But again, to really pinpoint what the issue is, it depends on the grade level and how far behind the student is.
So let's say I have a grade 3 student, child myself, and they're not reading. What can I do as a parent to help them myself?
As a parent, modeling reading. So when a child grows up seeing their parents read just for fun, they see that and that helps them. Reading together with the child, something fun and exciting. Having the child read back to you while they're reading or after they're reading. Ask them just basic comprehension questions to see if they're fully understanding what they're reading. But it all starts, like, I'll be honest with you, my daughter, she's 22, just graduated from college. She had a library of books before she was even born. I was always a big reader because my mom would take me to the library. I saw my mom read, and school was the main thing in my life. And with kids, that's how it has to be, especially today. How many babies do we see with a cell phone in their hand? We see that everywhere. Not a book, but a cell phone. Yep. That's a whole separate issue, but it does affect reading and the love and desire to want to read. I'm still a little old school. I love an old-fashioned book in my hand. I cannot stand to read on the computer. But it all starts with that, because a child's first parent, or a child's first teacher, I should say, is his or her parent.
Yes.
So what they see at home, especially when it comes to learning, education, reading, we're going to take that when they leave the house.
Yeah. Let's have a little bit of a tough conversation here. How about I'm a parent, and I started giving my child the phone, and they're, when they were like maybe 1 year old, they just wanted them to sit in the,
To be quiet?
Yeah, and be quiet because it was too much, right? I have lots to do. It's busy. It's too much with maybe I have another child even, right? It's just a lot for a mom, right? We know how it is to be a mom and everything. So then, now the child is not reading and they just want the phone, because we now have developed a habit of, this is what we want. So how can she or the parent can take that away and bring in the book, love for book again? Is it possible to introduce again the book into their life?
It is possible, and depending on the kid, it might need to happen gradually. But hey, my thing is, if you're going to give a child a device, then have some apps on that device that are educational. Not to throw in a plug, but ABC Mouse is fantastic. Not YouTube, but there are a lot of educational platforms. Hooked on Phonics, that's what I grew up with. And they have a whole digital platform with Hooked on Phonics. If that's how you choose to parent, I can't, that's on you. However, make it relevant at least, But then again, there's a time and place for everything. Have some rules established at home that at a certain time, there are no devices. Let's sit together and just read a book. Let's talk about it. Let's have our own little family book club. There's so many things that could be done that are very simple, actually. But that would be my advice when it comes to that, the devices that we're so addicted to.
And do you think it's there's a debate about this is our new world. We have to teach our kids to have this phone. We have to let them learn about technology, and screen time is all important. But at the same time, literacy and children are graduating unable to read or write.
At a level that they should, definitely. I don't buy into that. I love technology as much as the next guy. However, there has to be a balance. Even through our coaching platform, my students are required to have a notebook. They are required to write in their notebook, because I believe in a blended model. I don't think that just doing everything 100% online is the way to go. Students, they need to know, and let's talk about their handwriting. Even that has fallen by the wayside, and that is not okay. That is not okay. We can't rely on the technology 110%. As wonderful as it is, it serves its purpose. However, there's a lot more to learning than just a device. And if you actually ask kids, I know that when I was in the classroom, my school had to have a blended learning model because our school's digital, so all students have a device. My students used to love to have a pencil in hand and write. They used to love that, and have paper, especially when it comes to reading and what I taught, which was English language arts, where you have to annotate the text and write notes. I had them do it on paper. and they loved it. They loved it. And then at the end of the year, they had a wonderful resource, their notebook that they put together.
Yeah, it's
It's
very
necessary.
something proud that they can keep, they can read it again. But also the handwriting is so important because it gives you that extra layer of, putting information into your system, right? Into your brain and decoding it. So
Completely.
important because it's just one way typing. It doesn't really get in. Like even I have to write something down in order for me to remember it.
So do I. So do I.
So
Yeah, with
it's
my
another
students,
thing.
I have them have a document camera. So, because I have one as well. So if I'm writing something in my notebook and I want them to see it, I just switch to that camera and they do the same thing. So I can see their handwriting live with the use of a document camera.
Very important. Yes. So parents can make that a part of their routine as well, like, for 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes even, right? And it doesn't have to even look good, but just the act of sitting and writing and sitting and reading. These are our time. We have to do these and then still have
Yes.
phone for another 20 minutes if they want it, but that should come as a routine. As you said, balance, setting balance and boundaries with these important skill set as well. Because in life, we can have whatever we want anytime we want. That's not how adulthood looks like, right? You got to go to work and do what you're required. So you have to learn
Life.
life skills. So what can you say to a teacher? Because some of the people who listen to our programs are teachers who are probably struggling in the classroom. Sometimes it's this has become a hardest. Many teachers are saying this is the hardest year in their career, even this year. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, it depends on where they want to take their career in their life. I always have said that teaching is not for everyone. And I'm going to say that coaching is the same thing. However, for a teacher who still loves the art and science of teaching, but they are no longer happy or satisfied or fulfilled in the system or in the classroom, there is hope. There are options for them, and this definitely is one of them. I mean, I left the classroom and I have my reasons for that, but I did not want to leave the education, teaching, learning part and still working with kids because that's very fulfilling. And in this model, for example, a teacher that still craves that can have it. And again, if they're unhappy, unfulfilled, there is hope. They have a choice. They have skills that they can use in this manner.
And what about administrators who are working with the teachers? One of the biggest thing teachers say these days are, there's a lot of micromanagement from top level down, right? What can they learn? What can you tell them if you were to advise those administrators?
Administrators? Again, since I've been doing this for so long, I've had many different types of administrators. I've had the micromanagers. I've had the ones that are totally absent. And I've had the ones that are phenomenal coaches. And a true administrator understands that they are the instructional leader and they understand that they have to support and coach their teachers. So just, I guess, a general thing that I would say, and administrators really know this, I've been very fortunate throughout my career. The advice that I could give them, and I've even had a friend administrator that was asking about coaching. It piqued their interest because, again, for the administrator that loves education and loves teaching, they understand the trials and tribulations of teachers. But then, you also have those that act like business people. And luckily for me, not all of them have been like that. And I think most administrators, well, all administrators are also under the microscope. They have X, Y, Z to do, and it trickles down to the classroom teachers. Again, I've been doing this for so long, and I've been in and out of the classroom, so I understand both super well. There are a lot of times administrators have to do things that they themselves do not believe in, that they themselves do not want to do. But it's the system. That's the issue that teachers have. Teachers don't really have a problem with administrators. It's the system that we're all under. So the system is very powerful, as you know.
Yeah. And how do you think students are responding since the COVID and lockdown, in terms of behaviors? Now that you are a dean, so you must know about behaviors.
Yes. Well, it's just now that it's starting to stabilize.
Stabilize.
So we're coming out of that craziness and it's beginning to feel normal now. I anticipate next year even being more normal, but it's like COVID is behind us. We want to keep it back there and let's just move forward. So last year for me was my toughest and most difficult year in my career. This year, however, it's a whole lot better. I mean, I still want to get out, but that's just something I've always wanted to do. But it's just starting to stabilize now. I mean, depending on the state, and I'm in Florida, so if you've heard anything about Florida, it's a little crazy.
Yes.
So we're still very boxed in. So kids are not going to know. Kids just know, oh, this is boring, or oh, this is not boring. So it's us. We're the ones that, have to make the difference. So
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Is there any other tips you have for parents that you want to share with them?
Yes. One of the tips I would like to share with parents is to give your kids a little space. And what I mean by that is to give them space to fail. Because without failure, they will never know success. And kids need space and time to figure things out on their own. That doesn't mean that you're completely absent. But and I say little Johnny, if little Johnny is having an issue working something out, don't go rescue him right away. A big part of learning is struggling. That's the rigor. It's struggling through the learning, because that in and of itself is where the growth comes in. So a parent has to kind of know when to step in, or if they need to hire a coach, for example, that the coach can step in. But you got to give a child space and time to grasp the material and to struggle. Struggle is okay. Struggle is not a bad thing. But if you had a struggle with a plan in place, that's even better. So they got to give their child some space.
But what about if I feel like I'm a parent who's feeling like I don't want my child to feel bad? Like failing is, they're gonna feel bad, they're gonna get hurt.
Well, then the parent needs to get schooled, because there's not one single successful person on this planet that has not had their failures. It's impossible. And again, you will never appreciate success if you cannot respect and accept. Not accept, but accept that failure is part of the process.
Yes.
Success is not something that happens overnight. It is a process.
Yeah.
And the parent needs to understand that.
Yeah, and what a great way to actually take those opportunities to teach our children something, instead of just fixing it too fast. And they don't even know they made a mistake. If you keep fixing it. I always say, like, even with my kids, I thought sometimes I made them feel like they're handicapped. Like I wasn't letting them learn. Like, when will they learn? Like, do it like this, I'll do it for you. But then if they didn't do it the way they did it, they could have dropped it, and that's okay if they dropped it, because now they know that carrying like that I will drop this, instead of when I grab it, I never gave them a chance to even drop it. So protecting them like that, it doesn't serve them in the real world. And absolutely.
It doesn't. And our job is to prepare kids for the real world. And that real world is constantly changing. But there's some things that will never change. Struggle will always happen. Success will happen as well. But again, it's part of the process. And learning is a process. It is a process.
Yes. What do you want parents to remember about your process and about you, about this episode?
Well, I am a person that has always valued education. My background coming from the inner city in Brooklyn, New York, raised by a single mom, I understood very, very early on that education was a lifeline for me. And I was a good kid. I listened to my mom, but kids today, for the most part, unless, they grew up where I did, they don't see education like that as a lifeline, but it is for everyone, because that is your introduction into the world. And I'm a person that I don't care where a child comes from, what their struggles are, what they're having difficulty with. I care more about where I can take them and where they're going. So I'm very, my way of teaching and coaching is to prepare them for tomorrow. And tomorrow could be next year, 5 years from now. And even when I was in the classroom, I was like that because I like to teach them life skills too, not just, reading and writing, but these skills that I'm teaching you, you take with you forever. They're yours forever. Once you learn them, they're yours.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like how you made what you've been through, and education was very important for you. You always said to me that, now you're giving that as a gift to other kids, and those kids who struggle, who think that they can't do it. But now you make them that light bulb moment in their life, and they feel like, I can do this. I can really do this.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Lynette, for offering all the tips.
You're welcome.
Yes, and in the show note, I will have all your information about your business. So parents who are listening, you can contact Lynette, and she has a free meeting, her Clarity coaching call, where, she will offer you information session where she can dive into what's going on in your child's life. And she'll tell you exactly where you need to begin. So, as a learning success coach, she doesn't begin by just, start working with reading or writing, because we don't know what's really wrong with your child until we do the assessments and find out exactly where they are. So we will definitely, I will have that in the show notes, Lynette, all your information, so parents can contact you. So thank you so much for being here today.
You are very welcome, Kohila. Thank you.
So there you have it, another interview with Lynette, our holistic neurogrowth learning success coach. As you heard, she was explaining how she's enjoying the work she's doing with her students in this way, because she's able to deliver transformation, and she's able to take students that are struggling to someone who is succeeding. So that was so important for her, and it's not possible when you have to work in a box, as she was kept saying. So it's really also important for as parents to understand the dynamic of the situation in the school system with the administrators and the teachers and the student and the parents. And we are all, working sometimes against each other. And that's because the system has put us all in that place. She didn't blame anybody. She was just saying the system is not working. The system is failing everyone. But in the middle of all of this is your child. So as I always say, our ultimate job, or all of us who are involved in this, is to protect our children, your child. So very, very important aspect of it is to make sure that you're always being gentle with that teacher when you're talking, when you're writing that email. If you're angry, just take a moment, go for a walk, and come back and send that email, because as I said always in the other interviews as well, you can never send something to a teacher and then you cannot send your child to go back to that classroom, because it's going to be so bad for that child to be with that teacher. Even though the teacher is not going to be against it, if you think about it, the situation has changed. They're not feeling the same way anymore. They're being blamed. Who wants to be blamed and then still continue to do a great job? So that's why as parents, we have to be very mindful of what we say and how we do it, because at the end of the day, what we want is the best for our children. So next time, if you are going through any problems, take a moment, think about it. And also, instead of writing email, it's actually better to go in person or on a phone call to talk to the teacher, because it will be better in a conversation, because we have feelings with our words. Whereas in emails, there's no feelings. You might write something, it might mean something else for the person who's reading it. The other tip that she gave that I really liked, that I think it's very important, is not to compare your children with anyone in the family or anyone that outside of the family that you may know, your friends' kids, because if you compare them, that means that the child's going to start feeling that they're not good enough, they don't have the skills, they're not talented, they're not smart, they're stupid. Now, all of these things are stories that they're going to start telling themselves, and we can't really take away those stories. They're just going to validate them, and it's going to create more stories to validate those stories, and your child's going to start feeling really bad. And that wasn't your intention. Your intention was to just give them a boost and give them something to look at and say, okay, why they're doing it, why aren't you doing it? That was your intention. But as children, they do not take it like that. Comparison can lead to really, really bad mindset, and that can affect your child really negatively. So just remember, when you're talking to your son or daughter, if they are appearing to be lazy and unmotivated, just remember that they're going through something, and maybe they have learning gaps that you're not noticing. And that's when a tutor cannot assist you. That's when a service like what Lynette is offering will be a great opportunity for you to even book that Clarity coaching call and see what she can tell you, the information, she can educate you, and then you can help your child. Until next time, just remember, the ultimate person that you need to protect is your child. So just remember, in this equation, in this learning journey, the most important person is your child. Make sure to protect them at all times. Thank you, and I'll see you in another episode.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Our purpose for this episode was to spark a reevaluation of the current education system. For more episodes offering practical and comprehensive strategies to enhance learning, please visit www.learningsuccessacademy.com. It is crucial to ensure that children have access to the holistic NeuroGrowth learning approach, enabling them to break free from the constraints of an outdated educational framework. This is your opportunity to gain insight and break away from a flawed system, setting your children on a path to lifelong success that truly nurtures their thirst for knowledge. That's all for now. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode.